Hello and welcome to another episode of Raw Chatter. I am your host speaking, Vicky Midwood, and today I want to talk about a double life and why we all fake it. So this again is a topic that comes up many times when I'm working with people, and I want to really kind of help us all to recognize that as human beings, we all to some degree lead a bit of a double life. We all have different voices going on in our heads, and we all have to recognize that sometimes we can almost feel like we are two people or even sometimes multiple people. And this is something that I want to kind of talk about in a little bit more depth, because I think particularly if you are somebody who's got low self-worth, low self-esteem, who struggles with people pleasing because you need validation to feel good enough, or perfectionism because you put worth on status and exam results and achievements over and above who you are as a person, because perhaps you don't actually know who you are as a person. And I think this is going to be really helpful for you, especially going to be helpful for people who are dealing with any kind of neurodiverse issues, because it can be really confusing as to who am I and who do I need to be. And some people actually know that helping themselves to pretend to be somebody else actually allows them to do some of the stuff that they feel they just wouldn't be able to do if they were just being themselves. So my point is, it has a place and we all do it. And that's what I want to help us to kind of discuss, if you like, or just talk about a little bit more, because we all have access to social media. We all have access to pretty much TVs and cinemas, and we watch people, don't we, in films pretending to be somebody else. And they get acclaimed for doing it so well, so realistically. And you may have heard actors talking about how some of them actually become the person that they are betraying, and they live as if they were actually that character in real day-to-day life, so that they can fully embody themselves into the personality traits, the habits, the foibles, so that when they are actually making the film, they come across as actually being the person. And I think Robin Williams is somebody who was really kind of into doing this. But it helps you to portray a really good job when you're an actor, but then to get back to actually being who you really are can be something of a challenge and something of a struggle. And this is where, when we are consistently putting on a front, pretending to be somebody or something that we are not, it takes its toll. So why do we all do it? Well, it's very simple. We need to fit in, right? We as human beings need to be a part of a tribe to survive. That's how we survived. If you were not a part of the tribe, if you were kicked out of the tribe and left on your own, chances are you would not survive. So it's very much our survival instinct means that we want to fit in. We don't want to stand out and be different because we might be rejected. And in the simplest survivalist terms, rejection equals death. Now that sounds dramatic, but that is actually how a lot of us kind of unconsciously feel about being rejected, which is why for some people they will go to absolute extremes of putting themselves out, of causing themselves discomfort and stress, purely and simply to avoid being rejected by others. They won't say what they want to say. They will say yes to things that they want to say no to, because there's this deep down embedded fear that if I get rejected, well, that will be it. Yeah, I won't survive. And we know in today's world that is not real, but this wiring is absolutely survivalistic and generational. And so we've got to recognize we're not going to get away from that sense of wanting to fit in and wanting to belong. We've all got it. Now, when you are somebody who's very confident in who you are and feel just comfortable in yourself, and you'll find that you don't really worry too much about how much you fit in, or you don't analyze it. And if you disagree with somebody, or you have an opposite opinion, or you want to go off and do stuff on your own, you're not really worried about how that comes across to others, because you are comfortable and confident in yourself doing the stuff that you know lights you up and is in alignment with who you are as a person. But for many people, particularly for people who have issues with addiction, people pleasing, anxiety, who struggle a lot with worrying about how they come across and what other people will think, that is not so easy. We've got to recognize that a lot of people believe their thoughts. And we're back to kind of some of the stuff that I was talking about over the last 3 episodes, where we think that what we are thinking is true and that it's real. And often it's absolutely not. It's based upon what we have seen or what we've heard, but not necessarily what is true for us. But we make up our opinions that if I come across like this, then people will like me. And so we set ourselves, in some cases, very unrealistic expectations of who we need to be and what we need to be doing on a daily basis to maintain this persona. What we often do is we look to social media, don't we? And we look to celebrities and we look to successful people, and we maybe try and pretend to be like them. Now, I'm a great believer in becoming the person that you want to be and acting as though you are that person. What do I mean by that? I mean that if you want to be somebody who is confident, then you have to decide to be confident outwardly initially until you get practiced at doing it. And then over time, you will actually feel that inner confidence. But it starts by you deciding to go ahead and do the thing. Though let's use public speaking as an example, because that is one of the things that when you survey people and you ask them, what is your biggest fear? It's usually standing up in public and talking and potentially being vulnerable and honest about yourself and your feelings. And a lot of people just don't want to do that. They don't want to do presentations. They will pass the buck to anybody else. They don't want to stand up, even if it's to make a comment on something in a seminar or a meeting. They would prefer to sit down. Why? Because standing up, suddenly now all of the focus is on you. And if you're not confident, you may find that you have a physical response. You might start to go red. You might physically start to shake. Maybe your palms will get sweaty as your nervous system goes into overdrive. And it almost reinforces this idea that you're no good at this. So however, when we can push through those things, when we can recognize that our nervous system is in overdrive because it's new and we're not used to doing this, but the more we stand up and the more we do make comments and the more we're not afraid to be the center of attention if we want to make a point or be heard, actually those physical symptoms will start to dissipate and you will start to feel more confident. But if you didn't decide to pretend to be, no matter what you were feeling or thinking, you would never get to the stage where you actually were. Now, there's a lot of debate over whether you should fake it to make it. And some people say, yes, you should. And some people say, no, you shouldn't. And then we hear people talking about acting as if, especially when it comes to manifestation. If any of you listening are into manifestation and how you do that, you visualize yourself, don't you? Actually, the future version of you being the person that you want to become. And therefore, and the instructions are that then you act as though that is already your current reality. So acting as if. Is that the same as faking it till you make it? Well, you know what? Semantics, it's words. I feel that if we are wanting to be a certain way, then the easiest way to attain that is to start acting like that now. Because that is then when you'll start to learn to feel more comfortable with being something and doing something that is unfamiliar. Because familiarity breeds confidence, and confidence is when you are content and comfortable and at ease in being the you that you truly are. Now, one thing that a lot of my clients worry about is that people will see through it. But here's the thing. Most of the time, we're all faking it to some degree anyway. And we all know that we do it, right? Think about it. We will all put on an air of smiling and jollity and being really happy to be there and pleased to see someone, when internally our voice is going, oh my God, I really don't want to be here. How long is this going to last? I'd rather be anywhere else but here. We all do it. Why? Because we're all human. The thing is, some of us are more open and honest about going, yep, I do that, because all humans do. Whereas other people will pretend that they don't. The reality is, as a human, you are going to, right? It's in our DNA. We are going to be kind, I hope, and be nice. And we are going to say, when somebody says, how are you? How many times have you said, oh, I'm fine, when actually chaos is reigning in the background, right? And you've got 10 million things that you've got on your to-do list, and you'd rather be anywhere else than where you are right now, telling people that you're fine. We all do it. We all live this highlight reel, specifically on social media. Although, to be fair, there are more people now who are sharing their vulnerabilities. But most people are going to be sharing the stuff that is going well for them, because that's when we feel good and that's when we feel like sharing stuff. When we're not feeling good in ourselves, we just want to hibernate, don't we? We want to hide away. We want to shut the world out. We're probably not going to want to share that stuff with people. Why? Because there's a part of us doesn't want other people to know that there is another side to us, that there is potentially a side that is contradictory to the one that they show the world. But here's the thing, we all do it. And that's what I want you to keep on hearing from this episode. Everybody does it. It's to the extent that you do it, that's the thing. So if you're overly polite, right? If you're somebody who literally is just too much in terms of how you effervesce and fuss over people, then a lot of people are going to be repelled by that. They may not show it to your face, but they will kind of probably roll their eyes and kind of be thinking, oh, she's off again, right? And everybody knows it's an act and everybody knows that it's false, because nobody is that polite and nobody is that kind, just genuinely, you know it's an act. Conversely, it makes people feel uncomfortable too. And they're more likely then to pretend that they're absolutely fine with you being how you are, but they can't wait to get away as quickly as possible. So this is where you've got to look at how much of an act is actually as close to being the real me as I can get, without feeling uncomfortable and without kind of letting myself and the other person down. And also, how much is just too much when it's flipping obvious that I am just pretending and putting on a front. And I think for some people, it's that is the tricky bit, because we don't want to be miserable and down in the dumps all of the time, because that's not fun for anybody. It's not fun for you, and it's certainly not fun for people on the receiving end of being in your energetic space. But also, we don't want to be ridiculously over the top where it's obviously false. So is there a happy medium? Yes. And this is the thing. We're not usually that far removed from the persona that we do put on. Yeah. And that's when people say to me, oh my God, I don't actually know who I am. Well, you're not that different to who you're pretending to be. Why? Because you can't be. Internally, it's inside you. Your essence is going to be there. What do I mean by essence? Well, your values, I believe, and the things that are really important to you are going to come across, whether you are pretending all is well and faking it a little bit, or whether you are absolutely being 100% you and genuine. Because your values are the things that unconsciously rule what you say, how you think, your body language, how you actually hold yourself, and to some degree, the words that you choose to use. So if you are worried about you losing touch with who you are, if you are scared that you're kind of emotionally numb because you're always pretending that everything is fine, that you've lost the ability to actually know or connect to what you're really, really feeling, a really good exercise to do is to just look at what are the things that I value in my life? What are the things that are really important to me? Now, this is just something for you. This is not something that you share. But when you actually look at those values and then you start to look at how that makes you feel as you're reading through those and how many of those values you do actually show when you are out and about, when you're in conversations, when you're doing your work, even if you're not in front of people, then you can start to understand that actually you're not that different to who you're pretending to be. Okay, it's maybe that you're just, icing the cake a little bit thickly when you're in front of certain people, but you're more just the real version of you when you're with other people. And we all do this, right? We all have different fronts and different personas depending on the company that we're in, depending on where we are physically. We understand that there are some social expectations whereby you're going to behave in a certain way. You're not going to say certain things when you're in a specific venue with certain types of people. You could, but chances are you'd be either dragged out or asked to leave because you wouldn't fit in. And we don't like people as a tribe who don't fit in. So we do reject them. And that bit is true. That's why, going back to what I said at the start, it is hardwired. We don't want to be rejected because rejection means ejection often from the tribe, and that means death. However, there are some people, and this is why oftentimes we do look up to them, who thrive on being the ones that stand out and being different, because often they are the change makers. Often they are the ones who really do get shit done and make a difference because they're refusing to be a part of the tribe. Can you be a little bit of both? Yes, absolutely you can, when you're clear on your values, when you're clear on the stuff that's really, really important to you. And you can almost use that as your anchor to come on back to. When we look at values, we can then look at our beliefs, because often our beliefs are very much tied into our values. And this is the work that we need to kind of help many of our young people to look at, potentially when they are young, rather than waiting until they get to their 40s or 50s and 60s before they start to actually evaluate what are the things that I believe and where have they come from, and are they even mine? Are they society's views? Are they my parents' views? Are they something that school taught me I should believe? And how do those beliefs actually align with my values of the things that I value in other people and the things that I want to value in my life and for myself? And this is where we can be a little bit kinder to ourselves when it comes to how we feel about putting on an act or pretending to be, because it is of value to us to do it. It allows us oftentimes to move on, to get what we need to do to be able to take the next steps, to move forward, to create that growth mindset. That is exactly what we need to do sometimes, to be able to get to growing and actually feeling that now it's not so much of an act. It is who I am becoming. But you can also then, when you look at your beliefs and your values, you can look at actually when that's not helpful to you, and when you need to change things, and when you need to just shift a little bit in how you are portraying yourself, maybe around certain people. So it may be that you're extremely boundaried, for example, at work, but you're a little bit wishy-washy with your boundaries when it comes to what's going on with the people around you at home. And that's sometimes where we can start to question, who am I? Right? Because you're not being consistent with those boundaries at home as you are at work, and therefore it feels uncomfortable. And then you start questioning, so which is the real version of me? All of them. is the answer, right? We've all got different personalities when it comes to how we show up with different people. It's how we get along with humans as a society. There's always going to be anomalies. There's always going to be people who will be who they are and they'll say what they want to say regardless, and they just don't give a shit, right? And that's fantastic if that is who you are and you're comfortable being that. Awesome. For the majority of people, that is not who they are. And that can get you a long way in life, but it can also stop you sometimes from getting what it is that you really want, that really lights you up. And so what I want to leave you with really today is just looking at, who am I when I'm with certain people? So maybe do a little exercise and just say, who am I when I'm with my partner, my life partner, if you have one? Who am I when I'm with my best friend, as opposed to who am I when I'm with acquaintances or people that I've known for years, but I don't actually know that well? Who am I when I'm at work with my boss? And then who am I when I'm at work with my colleagues who are on the same kind of level with me? Who am I, if it's relevant to you, with people who I deem to be kind of underneath me, people that I am leading? And just look at those values and how are you coming across? Are you being consistent with those? Because when we are consistent with our values, things like, when I'm talking about values, by the way, for the people who struggle with what exactly do I mean by values, I mean things like being kind, courteous, punctual, thoughtful, confident, having clarity in how you come across. So things like being accountable to yourself and other people, things like being boundaried, things like being open, and things like being honest, always. So that doesn't mean telling little white lies. It means always being honest if that is something that you value. And this is where you can see when you're not actually in alignment with those values. That's when we kind of feel a bit icky and then may question, actually, who am I? Because sometimes we can think that we value things, and the reality is we don't. We value something else. So a prime example of that is a lot of people say to me that they value freedom, but they also value certainty and safety. Now, if you want freedom, you're not going to be safe and certain all the time, because freedom means that you're going to go off and you're going to start doing stuff and you have no idea what is around the corner and what is next. You're going to be always living in a state of uncertainty and potentially possible unsafety. So if your values are contradictory, you are going to feel pulled in different directions. So it's an interesting exercise to do. And if you're not clear on values, just Google or utilize ChatGPT and just put in, what are, say, the top 100 values that humans have, and go through that list and just pick out, without overthinking it, which ones actually speak to me, and then get a little bit deeper. Which ones are your top ones? Now, if you listen to a lot of people who are very successful, who talk on podcasts and what have you about their top values, you'll find that the majority of them just have a handful, right? 5 or 6 at the most, that they keep front and center of focus, because that helps them then to stay aligned to, who am I being and how am I coming across? But I want to leave you with this. It's an ongoing process. As humans, our personalities are not set in stone. Who we are being at different times, if seasons of our lives, if you like, is going to be different. How you are as a little child, as an infant, is going to be very different to how you are as a parent or a daughter or a colleague, and how you are in your 20s around your friends is going to be different to how you are in your 40s, right? Because we grow, we change with wisdom and life experiences and a wider understanding. We are evolving all of the time. Hurrah. People who get really stuck are the ones who do not allow that evolution. So what I want you to think about is, you are a work in progress. is. We all, to some degree, lead a double life. The one that we put on that people can look into on the outside, and the one that we feel that we are living on a day-to-day basis. We're all faking it to some degree so that we can fit in. And all you need to do is recognize that if you stay as close to being as true to your values and really get clear on your belief systems and how you want to live and how you want to feel as you're going about your life, then you're not going to go far wrong. I hope that has been helpful in some way, folks. And if it has, click the like button. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. And I'm going to leave you with this, as I always do. We only have one life as far as we know, and one body. So please do look after it, because it is looking after you. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.